Hey, everybody. We are going to talk about gratitude. All right, let's start the show. There is no God and we're all gonna die. There is no God and we're all gonna die. There is no God and we're all gonna die. There is no God, there's just you and I. Hey, everybody. Welcome to There Is No God and We're All Gonna Die. I'm your host, Daniel Cartier, a gay liberal atheist living in the Bible Belt. And I'm glad that you're here today. It is the day after Thanksgiving. I normally post on Thursdays, but I decided to spend Thanksgiving with the people that I love. And so I'm here today talking to all of you. And so I made this list. I made this list of 60 things I'm grateful for. Now, before I get started, I need to say a couple things that are not on this list, but that I'm also grateful for. I mean, I'm grateful for my partner, Corey. I'm grateful for our dogs. I'm grateful for my friends, grateful for family, grateful for the fact that we get to be here today. This is all wonderful stuff. That the list I made touches on some of those things, but that's just stuff about my life. I wanted to talk about stuff that really affects all of us, whether you're conservative, liberal, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist like me. My point with doing this podcast is to hopefully bring people together. I know you think that might sound weird considering the name of my podcast is There Is No God and We're All Gonna Die, but that's just me getting some of my core beliefs out of the way. And so if you show up wanting to hate my podcast, my hope is you might hear something that makes you realize, you know what, we aren't really that different. I mean, that's always been my hope. I don't do it perfectly, none of us do, but I think at the end of the day, we'd rather get along with people than hate them. So anyways, I'm going to touch on a lot of that. The other thing I'm thankful for before I get into this list is I want to thank everybody who has called into this show to leave voice messages. I love getting those voice messages, and I'm not taking any voice messages in this episode. I'm just going to focus on this list. But please, if you feel compelled to call up and leave a voice message and let me know what you thought of this list, or let me know what you think of any of the other things I've been talking about, or just let me know what's on your mind. You may be a conservative and you want to convince me why you love Donald Trump. I would love to hear that. You may be a super religious person and you may want to let me know why you think I'm wrong when I say there is no God. I'm all ears. I still love you as a person, and I want to hear what your views are. If you agree with me and you're happy to hear that somebody else has some similar views, absolutely call in. Or just call in and talk about stuff that you think is cool. The way you do that is go to my website, Daniel Cartier, like the watch, so it's a fancy last name. It is my real last name. Daniel Cartier, CARTIER.com/podcast. DanielCartier.com/podcast. And then there's a little button that says, leave me a voicemail. Just hit that and it'll take you to this thing and you can record a voicemail and I will listen to it. Yeah, I'll respond to it. And I'm always respectful. I'm not here to be mean to anybody. This isn't the angry, mean atheist podcast. Although if you are a bigot or a homophobe or a transphobe or a racist or a sexist or a fascist or a Nazi or anything like that, I will still be respectful when I talk to you, but I'm probably going to say some stuff you're not going to like. And I may even call you a douchebag, but I will say it with love. Because I'm kind of a douchebag too. So anyways, let's get on to my list. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that yesterday, November 27th, was the anniversary of Harvey Milk getting shot. And so I wanted to start off my gratitude list by thanking Harvey Milk for being a trailblazing LGBTQ person. He was one of the first openly gay people elected to office in America. And as many of you know, he was assassinated 11 months later by Dan White, somebody that he worked with. And homophobia had a big part to play in it, obviously. And he's since become a icon in the gay rights movement, as one of the first nationally recognized openly gay politicians to serve in America. And I think it's important for me to remind myself that there were people who came before me who dared to be open at a time that was even more closeted than we are now. Way back in the 70s, somebody running for office and being an openly gay person was a big deal. I always like to take a moment on anniversaries like that to recognize the fact that them putting their lives on the line made it possible for so many other people later on to live openly and to shine brightly and to follow their dreams, because he was somebody who dared to do it way back in the 70s. And so that's my number one gratitude, is I'm thankful for Harvey Milk. Number two, I'm grateful for all the gay heroes. I'm grateful for Marsha P. Johnson. I'm grateful for Sylvia Rivera. All the people who lived openly and advocated for equality in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, during the AIDS crisis. Literally, as people were getting killed, as people were dying of AIDS, they still showed up and showing up and being accounted for, getting fired in the process, losing housing, losing jobs, but still showing up and demanding a seat at the table. And so then that reminds me of number three, like all the heroes of equality, not just in the gay rights movement, but for racial equality. Martin Luther King, for workers' rights. Somebody like Crystal Lee Sutton, who was basically Norma Ray. The movie Norma Ray was based on her. People putting their lives and their jobs on the line just so that other people could have equality and dignity. So I wanted to thank them. That's number three. Number four is kind of a funny one. I'm grateful for the villains. Because of the villains, the people who ended up being the heroes had a reason to become heroes. And you want to know what else I'm grateful for? And this is still just part of number four. We don't really remember the villains. The villains do their fucking bullshit. They try to keep people down. They try to fight against progress. They try to fight against equality. This has been going on for centuries now. Humans who are in power, a certain type of human, different groups would come up and want a seat at the table, whether it's independent women or people of color or gay people or transgender people. You have these marginalized people who also want a seat at the table because this is their one shot at happiness. We're only here once. So of course, everybody, while they're here on this planet, they're going to want to be treated with equality and dignity and grace. And so you get this pushback from the people who have their seat at the table. They feel like if they scoot their seat over and make room for other people, well, then their seat at the table isn't going to be as big, which is crazy because honestly, what will really happen is it just means there's going to be more people at the table. The table's going to be more interesting, first of all. It's going to be more colorful. It's going to be more dynamic. It's going to be more representative of what the world actually is. It's not a threat. Yeah, sure, it means you might have to work a little harder because there's more people now who are on your level, but shouldn't that always be the way it is? So, the villains like to push back. I'm talking about the stereotypical racist sheriffs and Ku Klux Klan members back in the 50s and 60s who, would say the N-word and laugh as civil rights workers were murdered. Those type of guys, the people who beat up Matthew Shepard and beat him to death. Nobody's going to remember their names, but they'll remember Matthew Shepard's name. Nobody's going to remember those stupid friggin' racist sheriffs from the 1960s. They're just these fat fucking douchebags. That's how those people are remembered. But Martin Luther King's not remembered that way. Nobody remembers the kids yelling at the little black girl who was the first person to go to an integrated school. But they remember that little black girl. All they remember about the other people is they were this ugly throng of people screaming at her. That's their place in history. And so I'm grateful for that. Number four is that I'm grateful for the villains for a couple reasons. One is because they light a fire under us to defeat them. They give us a reason to fight. I'm not saying I agree with their reasons, but then despite all their efforts, equality and love, it's going to be a constant need for us. And so as much as they want to fight, at the end of the day, as we progress as a society, and we will progress, we will, and as old ideas fall away and are replaced by new ideas when we get better information, yeah, those people, they just become this caricature of what hate is. That's their lot in history. They become the caricature of the hateful bigot. And so I'm grateful for that too. I'm grateful that they get to still serve a purpose in history, but just a purpose of what somebody doesn't want to be. Nobody wants to be remembered as the racist sheriff now or burning witches at the stake. That nobody wants to be remembered. Well, that's their lot in history. But a lot of people, that is what their lot in history is. They were the haters. So, number 5. I mentioned a bunch of really famous heroes. I'm also grateful for the heroes that aren't famous, the people who show up today on a local level canvassing for progressive politicians. We have a election right now happening in the 7th District of Tennessee, where I'm from, and I'm very excited to vote for my candidate, Afton Bain. She's an amazing woman, and she's up against this Trump loyalist. And if we were able to flip this district, it would be national news. And so we have people canvassing and spreading the word about her. And I think those everyday heroes are just as important as all the big names that I mentioned at the beginning. We need everybody. It can't just be one person shining brightly. It has to be a bunch of people shining brightly. It's the woman who works a bunch of jobs while raising kids on her own, but then still manages to show up and answer phones at a phone bank. Or it's the person who maybe they aren't rich, but they're still donating to their local food pantry, or maybe they're rescuing animals and they're fostering homeless animals because people have been so irresponsible. It's the people who just speak up if they see somebody being racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic in a restaurant, and they actually say something. They go over and say, hey, you know what? What you're saying to that person, that's not cool. And I have a problem with it. Those everyday heroes, I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for them just as much as I'm thankful for the big names like Harvey Milk and Marsha P. Johnson and Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King and all the other big names that I could list off. There's a bunch of them. But I'm grateful for just the people at a local level, just doing the right thing. To me, I get so much inspiration from that, and it makes me want to do better. So, number 6. I'm grateful for the trolls, for the online trolls with their hateful comments. You know why I'm grateful for them? Because by seeing their ugliness, they force me to actually think about my own views. I have developed a lot of my own views by arguing with online trolls. Like, I will see somebody say something so hideous and heinous, and I'll think that I had well-formed thoughts about something, but it's when I'm typing out a response to an online troll. This is where online arguing can actually be beneficial, when it makes us realize what we actually think about something. And so I don't feel bad. I try to be respectful. I don't always do a great job with it. I can be a kind of a douchebag, but my goal is to, work towards being more respectful with everybody I'm talking with, even the online trolls. It's not easy, but it's my goal. What's a good example? Like, for instance, when Dylan Mulvaney did the whole thing where she had a bottle of Bud Light, and then the entire right wing of America just flipped out and they boycotted Bud Light because a transgender person was on one can. And it was national news. The Bud Light stock sank, and everybody was like, oh, we're going to put Bud Light out of business because they had the audacity to put one transgender woman on one can of Bud Light. And Kid Rock was crying about it and shooting up a bunch of cans of Bud Light on TikTok. And it was just so fucking ridiculous. Well, I've had transgender friends for decades, and I love my transgender friends. I'm constantly inspired by their bravery because I think it takes a lot of guts to live that authentically, and it shouldn't take a lot of guts. They should just be able to live authentically. It should take zero bravery because it's just people living their lives. But unfortunately, it takes tons of bravery because we have so many people who are just hell-bent on hating transgender people. So I found myself going down this rabbit hole. I didn't even know who Dylan Mulvaney was, but I found out who she was. I actually became a big fan of hers. I thought, wow, she's really cool. And now I follow her on Instagram. She actually got a fan out of all of this. So I guess I can thank the right wing for that. But Yeah, I found myself arguing with a lot of online trolls, and I kind of went through this period of about a month where, like, every day I found myself sticking up for this transgender person I had never met. And by doing that, I thought I had well-formed opinions about the whole transgender right movement, but by defending somebody, it made my thoughts even more crystal clear about how important it was for this marginalized group of people to be treated with dignity, and how it bothered me that people were being so hateful for no reason whatsoever. And yeah, so I kind of have online trolls to thank for that, because I found myself having to stick up for somebody I had never met. I ended up dedicating a song to her on one of my albums, my song Little Bird. So if you know her, let her know that she has a song dedicated to her. I'd love for her to hear it at some point. But anyways, that's besides the point. But yeah, I'm grateful that I was able to form even more concrete opinions about why it was important for transgender people to be treated with grace and dignity, because honestly, everybody deserves that. Everybody. So long as the thing that you are being labeled as, whether it's gay or lesbian or transgender or bisexual or um, non-binary or straight or cisgender or whatever it is, so long as whatever that is not hurting anybody. Now, if you want to label yourself as a proud racist, well, that's a label that's actually hurting people. So that's different. So me being hateful towards a racist, that's not the same thing, because I'm actually don't hate the racist. I hate their hate. See what I mean? There's a difference. So if you're an online troll and I'm a douchebag to you, I'm a douchebag to your beliefs. The loving thing that I feel towards you is that I hope you get better information at some point. Because the reality is, nobody's out to get you. People just want to live their lives. And if you stopped giving a flying fuck about trying to dictate what they should do with their lives and just let them live their friggin' lives, we could all live in peace and harmony. That is the reality. It is really that simple. But anyways, I'm going all over the place right now, and I don't care. I'm enjoying this list. So, thank you to the trolls. Number 7. I think I already talked about this. I'm grateful for how the trolls and the racist sheriffs and all the other people are going to be remembered through history. I've already talked about that. Number 8. I am grateful for my extended gay family. And what I mean by that is I mentioned, for instance, Harvey Milk, or Marsha P. Johnson, or Brandon Teena, the trans man who the movie Boys Don't Cry was based on, or Matthew Shepard, or Vito Russo, or Sylvester. And then all the people who were part of those communities, their friends, their families. I have my family. I'm the son of Joanne and Jacques Cartier. They were wonderful people, so they were my biological parents. I have my brothers and sisters who I absolutely love. One of my sisters is a lesbian, so there's 2 gay kids out of 6. And I'm very grateful for having progressive parents. They passed away in 2014, but they were really cool people. But I also have my gay family, my chosen family. When I moved to New York and I met drag queens and poets and performance artists and musicians and so many amazing people. So many of them have passed away from AIDS or suicide or natural causes, but then some of them are still around. They're scattered all over. And then, of course, my tribe here in Tennessee. I have a wonderful recovery community here with my best friend is a gay Christian who's a deacon at his church. So, I'm grateful for my extended gay family, to know that there's people out there. And even if they're people I've never met, if you're a member of the LGBTQIA community or an ally, a staunch ally, even if I've never met you, I feel like you're a special member of my family. I really do. I've had some of you comment on these podcasts or write me private notes about how a certain episode, when I was talking about either homophobia or some other aspect of whatever this podcast is about, and it resonated with you. I feel such a strong bond. Like, I know we're not related, but I feel like some sort of relation to you, and I'm so grateful for that. It was one of the points of doing this podcast was for me to feel a little bit more connected to people because as a gay, liberal, atheist living out in the Bible Belt, it's so important for me to still have community. As you can probably tell from me talking, I am a people person. Believe it or not, the angry atheist is actually a people person who loves people. I love people. I really, really, really love to be in community with people. And so, absolutely my extended gay family. I mentioned Harvey Milk at the beginning. My wonderful friend Daniel Nicoletta, who took the photo of Harvey standing outside his photo shop in San Francisco back in the 70s. It's a very famous picture of Harvey. It was the picture that was on the Forever stamp. My wonderful friend Daniel Nicoletta, who I still communicate with to this day, he took that photo. So the fact that I have this extended gay family, and it even includes people who knew Harvey Milk. I mean, I never met Harvey Milk. I was, 8 years old when he was assassinated, and I lived in New Hampshire. So of course I never met him. But I love that in the gay community, we can have these connections, the 6 degrees of separation type of thing. And so I'm grateful to know that I have my biological family who I love, but then I also have my chosen family of like-minded individuals. They're just as important to me. So anyways, number 9. This is kind of a weird one. So one of the announcements this week was that Donald Trump was not going to acknowledge World AIDS Day in December. Probably the first president to never recognize World AIDS Day. As a gay person who's lost many friends to AIDS, obviously that is just so insulting, but it's expected. The one shred of gratitude I can take out of that is it reminds me that we still have work to do. I'm grateful to be reminded that, you know what? We cannot just roll over and play dead. The fact that we have a sitting president who, for no reason other than placating his homophobic base, which is all this is, we're not going to acknowledge World AIDS Day anymore. The White House doesn't acknowledge it. It's like cruelty is the point. So I'm grateful for that reminder that we can't let up. This is why we continue fighting. Number 10, I'm grateful for all the haters because they serve a purpose. Kind of like I was talking about the online troll serve a purpose. People like the Westboro Baptist Church, weirdly enough, I think they do more good than they realize because I have friends who, they weren't sitting around thinking about gay rights. But then they saw the Westboro Baptist Church protesting at Matthew Shepard's funeral and saying that Matthew Shepard was burning in hell. Well, Matthew Shepard's parents saw them doing that and holding up signs saying God hates fags and all this other stuff. And so my friends, I have a friend who, he didn't have any problem with gay people, but man, when he saw that lit a fire under his ass. That bothered him the same way I'm not a transgender person, but when I see people saying horrific things about transgender people, I get riled up. That got my straight friend riled up, and he became this really staunch advocate for gay rights because he saw the Westboro Baptist Church being ugly assholes. So in a weird way, when Donald Trump makes these declarations like there's only 2 genders or, we're not going to acknowledge World AIDS Day, it's like, okay, you know what? Keep it coming. Keep it coming. You're just showing people who you really are. You are reminding us why we have to keep fighting. Same with people like the Westboro Baptist Church. Keep making your little fucking signs. God hates fags. Ooh, we're so fucking scared. No, sweetie, you're just going to make us want to fight harder. That's all you're doing. You don't realize that, but that is all you're doing. And again, that's how you'll be remembered in history. Years from now, you'll just be this fucking stupid church that promoted hate. That'll be your sad footnote in history. So, good luck with that. Which brings me to number 11, our resilience. You know what? Despite all the fucking bullshit and the racists and the alt-right fucking whatever you want to call it, the KKK and the Proud Boys and the sexists and the transphobic people and homophobic people and all the, the preachers saying that gays should kill themselves and all these fucking people. We aren't going anywhere. Our resilience. We are going to keep showing up and showing up and showing up. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing our whole fucking lives. We fight for our right to be here. And we will keep doing that because you know what? That's in the human spirit. You can't keep the human spirit down. The human spirit, you can kick it, you can punch it, you can throw dirt in its face, but every living thing wants to live free. You put an animal in a cage, what does it want to do? Get out of the fucking cage. So if you try to put us in a cage, guess what? We're going to keep trying to get out of that cage because that's just the way a living thing operates. You can't keep a living thing down. I came of age in the AIDS crisis. I remember when I first moved to New York in 1990, 1991, every weekend was multiple memorial services, just memorial service after memorial service. Like you would meet somebody and then a month later they'd be dead. You'd meet these vibrant, funny, creative, colorful, just awesome guys who are just so great. And then they'd be dead. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And we're still here fighting it. There was a time where we thought, is this going to be the end of the gay community? No, it made us mobilize. It made the gay community stronger in a weird way because, we had to band together to save our own. And that's what we're going to keep doing. You can take away people's rights, but they're just going to keep asking for them back. We're never going to stop knocking at that fucking door. So I'm grateful for our resilience. We've proven as a species over and over and over again that when we want to be treated with grace and equality and dignity, we're just going to keep asking for it and demanding it. Not asking for it, we're going to keep demanding it. So, which brings me to number 12. I'm grateful for my natural family. I mentioned them at the beginning, but I'm grateful that I was raised by very progressive parents who loved all their kids equally, 4 straight, 2 gay, and taught us to treat people with compassion and kindness and empathy. My dad was a World War II, but he was also a brilliant artist and a very sensitive man. I grew up listening to him sing Hank Williams on his guitar. I have his guitar. And my mom raised 6 kids, but yet still advocated for migrant workers and for the rights of women and women's lib. She was the mom with all the pamphlets, of injustices. If you came over to our house, she would have a pamphlet about some injustice. And it was awesome. And I got to be around that. And then when I came out of the closet, she still loved me and my dad still loved me, So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I was raised in that type of environment. Number 13 is I'm grateful for the memory of my friends. And now I'm talking about my friends who weren't so lucky, who had parents who disowned them, and some of them ended up killing themselves. I'm grateful that I still have the memory of how wonderful they were that I can hold on to. Everybody deserves to grow up in a home that loves them unconditionally. And some people don't have that. There's a whole version of religion that's just ugly and judgmental and fire and brimstone and you're going to hell and gays are evil. And, I've shared about this before. I knew a guy who his parents literally threw everything out onto the front lawn and pushed him out of the house and told him that he was going to hell. Can you imagine your parents doing that? I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine it. And he's dead now. But I'm grateful I have the memory of what a wonderful person he was. And there's so many people I can think of like that. So I'm at least grateful to know that they were beautiful people. And I have memories of them that I cherish. So, which brings me to, I'm grateful, again, I mentioned this, I'm grateful for my immediate family here in this house, my Corey, who is a wonderful man. He's a brilliant artist. And I think it's important that when we find people who get us, we allow them to get us. So Corey and I understand each other, and it's nice to be in a relationship where There's no judgment. We allow each other to be very imperfect people. And it's not a relationship of arguing, it's a relationship of communicating and respect. I think respect is so important in a relationship. And I really am so grateful that I have a relationship today that is based on that. I've dated other people, and for the most part, most of them were wonderful people. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And I still love a lot of them. There were things I loved about them when I dated them. That doesn't leave. That doesn't leave. You know, but I'm grateful to be in this creative house here. And so we have really fun conversations. And he has a big heart and he has wonderful friends. I always say that you can judge a person by the quality of his friends. And Corey has amazing friends, amazing friends. And so that says a lot about his own character. So actually, that's number 14 and 15, because 15 was Corey's talent, sensitivity, and how proud I am of him. So I covered all that. So number 16, I'm grateful for our dogs because they give me a lot of perspective. A dog is in the moment, and a dog, I think, does the thing that we try to do. We aspire to be like animals all the time. We aspire to just be here now, and to just have everything be exactly the way we want it. Well, I can look at my dogs a lot of times, and they are in that state most of the day. Everything is the most exciting thing they've ever seen, or at least it seems that way. Maybe I'm reading them wrong, but now we're going to go out. Now we're going to go back inside. Now we're going to take a car ride. Now we're going to get a treat. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. What are you doing now? And, I aspire to be that way because as an atheist, I don't believe in an afterlife. So wouldn't it be nice if my last moments alive, my last moments of consciousness, if I died later on in a freak banana bread making accident or whatever, my last moments of consciousness were, I'm making banana bread. And I was really excited about it. And then I died. Like, that would be much better than me dying and worrying about the root canal I have to have a couple of weeks from now, or, my taxes next year, or what Donald Trump's going to be doing. If I could just stay in the here and now. It's hard for us humans because our brains are just a little overly complicated, I think. I think evolution was a little overly generous to us. And I'm grateful for our friends, number 17. I've kind of already talked about them, but I'm grateful that I have friends that are just all over the map as far as what their beliefs are. Like I said, my best friend is a Christian, and I love the fact that he has that. I don't want to take that away from him. And, I have friends who are Republican. I have friends who are conservative. I still love them. Me shutting them out of my life just because they don't vote the way I vote. I mean, of course, I don't understand why they would vote Republican at this point. I really don't. I don't get it. But I've decided that I still want to be the love I want to see in the world. And so I've been doing a lot of work this year about reminding myself that it's more important than ever for these people to have liberal voices in their life. Loving liberal voices, not liberal voices who are just attacking them. But can I still be the love I want to see in the world? Because at the end of the day, I know this might sound hippy dippy, and I don't care because it's my podcast. So I can say whatever the hell I want. But I still think love saves the day. Like Captain and Tennille, love will keep us together. That love, I can't expect it to originate from anybody else. It has to originate from me. So I'm grateful for all my friends. Number 18, I'm grateful for the fact that our home is in the middle of the Bible Belt because it forces me to know people. I have friends who live in New York and in other places that are quote unquote like liberal bubbles, I guess. And I'm so grateful that they have that. I don't want to take that away from them. I understand why a lot of people would want to live in those places. And I think it's awesome that those places exist. So I'm not knocking that. I think for me, living down here in the Bible Belt, we literally live in the middle of Trump country. It has forced me to show up and treat people like, not to co-sign their beliefs, because I never will. And people know that about me. I'm very outspoken even down here, but I can be outspoken and still be loving to somebody. I can let people know I don't agree with them at all about most things and still be loving. They probably did vote for people I find reprehensible, and they probably do worship at churches that I would find reprehensible. But I still have moments between them where we do connect about other things. And, I think that those moments are very important. They may not be earth shattering, but if we can connect and they can know a gay person and they can ask me how Corey's doing, I think those communications are important. I've said, real change doesn't happen in big, grand, sweeping things. A lot of times change happens little moment by little moment, these little moments that nobody ever sees except for the two people who are in them. That's where real change happens. And it happens billions of times over around the world. And so me being here in the Bible Belt, I'm grateful that I get an opportunity to, when I'm on my best behavior, and I'm not, and I'm not proud of that, but when I'm on my best behavior, I get to show people what a loving, gay, liberal atheist looks like. So, anyways. Number 20. This home, it was built in 1899, and I'm grateful for its imperfections because I always thought when I owned a home that it would be this white picket fence type of home. And honestly, this home is kind of like living in a barn. It's very drafty. It's very cold. It needs a ton of work. But yet living here as long as I have, it's made me realize that happiness actually comes a lot of times from learning how to accept things as is and still be grateful for them. And so, yeah, I have this home that really needs so much work. It is like a work project. There's no foundation holding it down, but it's been here since 1899. That's how they used to build houses. And I've learned a lot about acceptance and about gratitude, even when things aren't perfect, by living in this house. Man, this house has been a big teacher for me. And so I'm grateful for that lesson because I've been able to apply that to so many other things in life too, things that aren't perfect, but yet I can still find so many reasons to be grateful for them. Number 21, I'm grateful to have a home. The reality is so many people don't have homes. Whether you're renting or you own your home or you are living with family, as the winter months get colder, there are people who their home is underneath the bridge. And more, there's people living in their cars or they're just living on the street. And for whatever reason, the luck of life was not on their side. They weren't born in the right zip code. They weren't born with parents who had the right sort of bank account. I've had the privilege of feeding people, homeless people in Nashville and in New York and out in Los Angeles. And every single time I'm struck, first of all, by it's not so much the food. I mean, people do appreciate the food, but you know what I think means a lot more to people is that somebody is actually treating them like a human being. To get to call people sir and ma'am and treat them with respect. And it's so important for me to let you know that you're not just some nameless, faceless person who's disposable. You're a person that matters. We live in a society that wants to just forget about those people like, well, somebody's going to take care of them. Somebody's going to, make sure that they're okay. Well, a lot of them aren't okay. A lot of people freeze to death. And so am I grateful to live in a house, even though it's an imperfect house? Absolutely. But I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of people who don't have that. And so it's our job as a society to try to help them. I know that me talking about this here on the podcast isn't going to get somebody into a home, but at least I'm talking about it, Anyway, I've done other things too. I've contributed to things. I've had albums that have raised money for the homeless and all sorts of other stuff. And I'm not saying that to sound like a good person. I'm just saying that, like I said before, big sweeping changes affect things, but a lot of times it's those small little acts of kindness that we all can do that make a big difference too. So maybe you can't house a homeless person, but can you donate to some place or can you, bring money to a food bank? Because not only that, I'm also grateful to have a full refrigerator. Man, there's people, they may have a home, but the home has a refrigerator with hardly anything in it. There's people going to bed hungry tonight. And that's just not right. It's not right. And we can do better. We should do better. We should want to do better. We should aspire to do better for all the people that we live with, because those are our brothers and sisters. And if you don't think that somebody who is going to bed hungry, if you don't think you're connected to them, then I don't know what's wrong with your soul. We're all connected. And so if one person goes to bed hungry, we all should feel that hunger. I don't know. I didn't mean to get so deep about it, but that's how I feel. All for one and one for all. You know, what a beautiful expression. All for one and one for all. Why is that so fucking hard for us to get our brains around? Which brings me to number 22. I'm grateful that the phrase pull yourself up by your bootstraps pisses me off. I am so grateful that that phrase pisses me off. That is one of my most hated expressions. Well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, and the problem I have with that is that the people who say that probably never had to pull any bootstraps up. They probably had designer bootstraps. They were probably born into a world where their bootstraps were always Gucci and Versace bootstraps, the best bootstraps you could possibly get. And so pulling their bootstraps up was easy. But, you know, for people who were born in communities pulverized by poverty, generational poverty and generational incarceration and generational targeting and profiling, you know, they may have bootstraps that are so threadbare that one tug would just snap the bootstraps, or they may not have any bootstraps to pull up at all. And so that expression, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that's the equivalent of seeing a homeless person on the street and telling him to get a job. You know, get a job, you know? And I've seen that happen. I've actually seen people say that to homeless people. When I lived in New York, I saw that happen multiple times, where some fucking douchebag wearing a suit was walking along and saw some homeless person and they said, get a job, without knowing anything about that homeless person's life. We can do better. We can do better. That's not how we should be. So if you're somebody who says that phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just know that I think that phrase sucks. There's no solutions in that. So number 23, I'm grateful to know people who do understand why I would hate that phrase. I'm grateful to know people who also feel that way, and that I've been able to identify millions of people around the world, billions of people actually around the world, that actually would find that phrase, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, offensive, knowing that there's so many other people who feel the same way about that phrase that I do. I'm grateful for that, because I know I'm not the only one who hates that phrase. I've brought that phrase up to people before and they're like, oh, I fucking hate that phrase. So I know I'm not the only one who finds that phrase actually offensive. Now, there's nothing wrong with telling people to, you know, go for the gold and try and, you know, make something of yourself. But it's one thing to say that to somebody who's already doing pretty good in life. But to say it to somebody who is just so broken and down and out, they don't even know how they're going to get their meal, and then to tell them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they are breaking apart is just offensive to me. It's offensive. That's when you have to fucking help people. And helping people is a noble thing. All for one and one for all. All for one and one for all. And if you don't want to be all for one and one for all, then what do you think the point of this is? Is it just to win? If winning's the point, man, that's really fucking uninteresting, because you know what? All your winning will not matter at all when we're dead, because we're all going to die. So if all you did in life was win, ooh, you won, you got a bunch of money, ooh, yay. It seems like a miserable existence to me. I'm sorry, it just seems really sad. Which leads me to number 24. I'm grateful for people of all faiths. Yes, I am a gay liberal atheist, but I have friends who are Christian. I have friends who are Muslim. I have friends who are Buddhist. I have friends who are Wiccan. I have friends all over the board. They're good people. They're honest people. They're trustworthy people. They want to help people. They want people to be treated as equals. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be in a place in my life where I can be an atheist, but then I can have friends of different faiths. And I can see the joy that their faiths give them, and be happy for them. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful knowing that, like my best friend Matt, like he gets a lot of joy from his faith. And I don't want to take that away from him. I'm really proud of him that he has that, because his version of Christianity doesn't hurt anybody. It lifts people up. He subscribes to the loving version of Christianity. And so if that gives him hope and faith and a reason to get up every day, awesome. So, number 25, I'm grateful that my friends of all the different faiths have the religions they have, and I'm grateful for the hope it gives them. I can still be their friend, and I don't have to believe what they believe, but I can be happy for them. And so, number 26, I'm grateful that I've reached a point where I don't want to take that away from them. I think we have this culture where if we believe something, then we got to get everybody else to try and believe what we believe. Me being an atheist, like if I'm the only atheist that I know, that's fine with me. I have my reasons for being an atheist, and I'll get into that later on in my list. There are things I'm grateful for in my own faith, because I do actually think that being an atheist is a form of faith. It forces me to live right here, right now. And if I want to be the love I want to see in the world, it has to happen right now, because I don't believe in an afterlife. And so, I need to be loving right now. I need to be proactive right now. It really forces me to be in the moment, And so that's me. But, I have friends who believe in other things, and I'm happy for them. And so, yeah, number 26 is I don't want to take that away from them. And I'm grateful for that, because I wasn't always that way. I used to want to tell religious people that they were stupid and all this stuff. And I'm just so grateful that that's not part of my life anymore. I have no interest in making somebody feel stupid for believing in something I don't believe. If their version of faith is not hurting me, then yeah, go for it. I will applaud you for going on your spiritual journey, as so long as it's not hurting anybody, Number 27, progressive Christians. I just need to single them out really quick, because obviously here in America, Christianity is the number one religion. And so as a gay person growing up, when I thought of all the people who were advocating against me, it was Christians. It was, people like, Pat Robertson and, all those friggin' douchebags who were practicing a version of Christianity that had nothing to do with what Christianity is. It was this form of bullying masked as religion, and we still have a lot of it today. So I'm grateful to know a lot of progressive Christians who actually share my values of equality and grace and dignity. And so I'm grateful to know people like that who are Christian. And so number 28, when I went to the Atheist convention this summer, one of my favorite speakers was a progressive Christian, April LaJoy. She wrote this book called Star Spangled Jesus. You can check it out. But she was amazing. And she was one of my favorite speakers there. She was a Christian. She still believed in Jesus, but she was a progressive Christian. She grew up as a right-wing teen for Jesus type of thing, but then later on in life, she looked at a lot of the values that her church had, and she realized, no, this is all wrong. And so now she advocates for gay people and transgender people and non-binary people, and she's against racism and sexism, and she's a very progressive woman now, but she still believes in Jesus. I love that there's people like that. The same with my friend Matt. And I'm grateful that I got to hear her talk, which is why I gave her number 28, because she worded it in a way I had never heard. She said, it's not important what somebody's beliefs are when it comes to God or no God. What's important is our values. Do we share the same values? And that made so much sense to me. Yeah, I don't care what somebody believes, but do they have the same values as me? Do they believe in equality and compassion and grace and dignity and kindness and empathy? Then, yeah, I don't care if they believe in Jesus or Buddha, or I don't care if they're Jewish or Muslim or whatever. If they have the same values as me and they think that people should all have an equal seat at the table, then come on board. Number 29, I'm grateful that those values have become so clear. They've become crystal clear. We know what the values are. It's the values of goodness versus the values of badness, because there are bad values. Transphobia is a bad value. Homophobia is a bad value. Racism is a bad value. Sexism is a bad value. Injustice is a bad value. Dishonesty is a bad value. Stealing from people who have nothing so that rich people can have even more. That's a bad value. Bad values. It's so obvious what the bad values are. The good values, it's obvious what those are too. And when we look back over time, when we look back through history, it's always clear later on who had the good values and the bad values, you know? Like when we look back to, say, the Salem witch trials, it's clear who had the good values and who had the bad values. The people who were like, hey, this is crazy. We shouldn't be hanging people and calling them witches. This is nuts. Those were obviously the people with the good values. The people who were like, no, she was in league with the devil and all this other stuff. Those were the people with the bad values. It becomes crystal clear later on. The people who were saying we need slaves in order for the South to operate, and we need to have these people working for nothing, and we can whip them, and we can even kill them, and we can rape their women. There are slaves, there are property. They had bad values. The people who were like, that's fucked up. No, a human being should not own another person, and we need to have abolition, and we need to free the slaves, and we need to let them be equal people. Those were people who had good values. So, over time, the good values and the bad values become clear. Unfortunately, a lot of times, hindsight is 20/20. So, who has good values today and who has bad values today? The people who were posing against the alligator Alcatraz signs, taking selfies, wearing their MAGA hats, and being proud that immigrants were being put in basically a dog kennel in the middle of the Everglades. Do you think that those people had good values? I don't. I think they had horrible values. Do you think the people who are laughing when a transgender person gets killed, or laughing when Matthew Shepard got murdered, do they have good values? Obviously not. No, bad values. At least for me, I think I've reached a point in life, and I think a lot of us have, where the difference between good values and bad values have become pretty clear. So that brings me to number 30, which is that we have a common enemy, and I'm glad that we can identify what that common enemy is. And it's not just a single person. It would be easy for me to be like, oh, the common enemy is Donald Trump. That is certainly somebody who is working against the good of all of us. He's working on behalf of billionaires. Let's just be honest. But there is like a whole slew of people like that. There's this whole mindset that is a common enemy of the good. This close-minded, selfish, greedy, get what you can, take what you can, keep all the people who aren't like us down. That mindset has become so obvious. It's almost like a cartoon at this point. But unfortunately, it's a cartoon that's happening in real life, and it's affecting all of us. It's affecting how much we pay, when we go buy groceries. It's affecting whether or not people can get hired somewhere. It's affecting so many things. So I'm grateful that the common enemy has become crystal clear. And number 31, I'm grateful that it's okay to not agree on everything, but still work together. I'm grateful for that. I used to think that everybody had to think like me or vote like me or have my exact mindset in order for me to work with them. And it turns out, no, we can have all sorts of beliefs, but still come together to work towards things that are going to help everybody. Again, all for one and one for all. So I'm grateful for that. Number 32, is there anything from the faith that my friends have that I can learn from? Like, do I have to be completely closed-minded to everything they believe? Or can I actually be somebody who, I may not believe in the God they believe in, or the afterlife they believe in, or anything like that, but are there things, beautiful concepts that their faith have that I can actually still find peace and serenity and happiness and guidance from? It turns out, yes. If I keep an open mind, there are beautiful lessons all over the world that people have come up with. And yeah, sure, some of those people may have believed in things we didn't believe in, but can I still be open to some of the good lessons from those things. So a great example of it is number 33, one of my favorite prayers. And yes, I do pray. I don't believe in God, so I don't believe that a God is listening, but the prayers that I pray, it's basically so I can set my intentions. It's almost like a mental reset. The words from the prayer, they're values that I would aspire to live by. They're prayers that actually have amazing values listed in them. And so number 33, I'm grateful for the St. Francis prayer. It's a prayer that I say pretty much every day. It goes, make me a channel of peace. The prayer says, make me a channel of your peace, so it's suggesting God. I just take out the your thing, and I just say, make me a channel of peace. And it's almost like me just reminding myself to be that. Make me a channel of peace, that where there's hatred, I may bring love. That where there's wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. Where there's discord, can I bring harmony? Where there's error, may I bring truth? Where there's doubt, may I bring faith. Where there's despair, may I bring hope. Where there's shadows, may I bring light. Where there's sadness, I may bring joy. Grant that I may seek to comfort rather than be comforted, to understand rather than be understood, to love than to be loved. For it's by self-forgetting that one finds. It's by forgiving that one is forgiven. It's by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. And, so that last line, I don't really believe in eternal life, but I do believe that by dying, my body will continue to nourish life for the rest of eternity. So in a weird way, we do live on forever, or at least our molecules do. And so I can get behind that. It also means that there's different forms of dying, like killing off old beliefs that we had. Can we let new beliefs that are much more healthy for us live, maybe not forever, but bring them into the future? That's been a wonderful prayer for me, and I'm very grateful for that. And that came from a religious person. That was St. Francis of Assisi, who loved animals and he lived a humble life, which leads me to another prayer I love. Number 34, I'm grateful for the Serenity Prayer. As a recovering alcoholic, I've been to a ton of quote unquote anonymous meetings, and they usually start with this prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Man, that is a powerful set of words right there. Some of the most powerful words I think any of us could aspire to live by. Because it turns out, number 35, there's a lot of things I can't control, and I'm grateful to recognize that. And a lot of it was through examining that prayer. That there is so many things in life that I was trying to control that really they're just out of my control, and I need to let them go and focus on the things I can control. So what can't I control? I can't control the past. It's already happened. I can't control the future. It's always going to be out of my reach. I can't control what's happening in other parts of the world. I can't control the thoughts of other people. People are going to do what they're going to do. I can't arrange life to be exactly what I want it to be. Life is going to be whatever it is. I can't control the weather. I broke that prayer down. I actually got a notebook out and I started writing down all the things I couldn't control. Man, I filled up pages and pages and pages. It turns out that I have very little control over this world. None of us do. Life is going to be whatever it is. We try to pretend we can affect this and affect that, but really, when things work out our way, it's kind of dumb luck. More likely, life is going to do whatever the hell it wants. And so it really got me thinking, well, what can I control? And the wisdom to know the difference. And I only could come up with two things. One thing was I can control my response to what's happening right here, right now. Every moment that I'm alive, I have a decision to make, like what's going to be my response to this moment. So if somebody comes at me with hatred, am I going to be hateful back to them, or can I try to be loving back to them? If somebody comes at me with something that is clearly wrong, like an injustice or dishonesty, am I going to be able to stand up to them? Am I going to be able to stand my ground and say, hey, that's not cool what you're doing to me or to this other person? The other thing that I have control over is my attitude. Now, my attitude is not my mood. And actually, a conservative guy who has since passed away, but he was a beautiful man, but he was very conservative. His name was Dudley. He passed away. He was part of my recovery community. He actually pointed that out to me. He said, you also have control over your attitude. And I'm grateful to him for that because I think about that all the time. What is my attitude? I can be in a bad mood, but I can still have a good attitude. I think our attitude comes down to our level of willingness to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Do I want to just stir shit up and be part of the problem in life? Or do I want to work on being part of whatever solution is available? I think there's a world of difference between the two mindsets. I think for a long time, I just wanted to be stuck in the problem. I wanted to complain. I wanted to bitch. I wanted to moan. I wanted to just talk about how much I hated everything, but not actually work towards any real solution. And then, of course, I would get frustrated. And then because I'm an alcoholic, I would get drunk and then I would upset people even more. And it was just like this snowball thing. And nowadays, it's like when I stay in that serenity prayer, and I don't do that perfectly. I mean, none of us are perfect, and that's okay. All we can do is try our best. And then when we fail at being our best, we can get back on the horse and try again. That's probably the best we can do. But yeah, when I break that prayer down, basically what it's telling me is you're here right now. Do the best you can right now with what you have. Here's what you have at your disposal. Make the best of it. Do what you can. And if you need help, ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. None of us have to live this life alone. We can ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. Every moment we are faced with an opportunity to make the best of life. Sometimes they're really shitty situations, but can I still approach each situation with an attitude of, I'm going to try to make the best of this? It's not always easy to do because life doesn't always feel great. And so number 36, I'm grateful for the peace that realization gave to me. It gives me a lot of peace when I fully accept that there's a lot of stuff I can't change. It gives me a lot of peace. And when I fully embrace that there's only a couple things I really can change, my attitude and my next action, that gives me a lot of peace too, because it makes life very simple. I can just focus on doing the next right thing. Do the next right thing. Do the next right thing. I say that all the time, like, well, I'm just going to do the next right thing. It's become like a mantra for me. I say it so much that I say it without even realizing it. But I'm grateful because, for a long time back when I was drinking, the mantra I said all the time was, I fucking hate my life. I fucking hate my life. I said it all day, every day. I fucking hate my life. That was my mantra for years. I fucking hate my life. I fucking hate my life. I was a nice person. I was nice to people, but under my breath, I'd be thinking, I fucking hate my life. I was so unhappy. And, I could keep going around talking about how I fucking hated my life, or I could finally do something about it. I could show up and be like, okay, Daniel, you fucking hate your life. What are you going to do about it? And I actually did have to ask for help. And I'm grateful that there was help available. And through the help of others, I learned how to start loving my life. But it was a long, slow process. It did not happen overnight. But I'm grateful that I stuck it out. And I'm grateful to still be here. And nowadays, there's things I don't like in life. Of course, there's always going to be things that we're not happy about in life. That's just reality. But overall, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful that I actually have love for myself today. And I think it's okay for us to admit we love ourselves. And I think it's okay when we can admit nice things about ourselves. Like, why not? We're just here once. We might as well love ourselves. Number 37, I'm grateful for the history I have with my depression, my PTSD, and my suicidal periods because, well, I'm not grateful for them, but I'm grateful that I was willing to show up and be part of the solution, I guess. Number 38, I'm grateful for my sobriety. Not everybody needs to be sober, and if you can drink, I'm happy for you. I think that's awesome. I don't condemn drinking. I'm actually for the legalization of pretty much all drugs. I think if we legalize them, we could actually make them safer. But anyways, that's a different subject for a different day. So I don't vilify alcohol. I'm happy that people can enjoy it. I'm not one of those people who wants to outlaw alcohol or anything like that. I know for me, if I started drinking, I wouldn't be able to stop and I'd probably drink myself to death because I'm an alcoholic. I'm hardwired differently to process alcohol. And so I'm a pretty gnarly alcoholic. You don't want me drunk. So I'm grateful to be sober almost 7 years, and it is one day at a time. If you are in sobriety, congratulations. That's awesome. Number 39, I'm grateful to remember what I was like before I was sober. And I think I just kind of described it before. I was somebody who was very unhappy, and I was really stuck in my resentments. And my resentments were almost like a prized possession to me. I would hold on to things that pissed me off, and I would almost like cherish them and allow them to piss me off more. I'd allow myself to get worked up by these things that pissed me off, and they consumed me. They really did control my life. Yeah, I had an attitude of resentment. Just, I had this huge chip on my shoulder. And so I'm grateful that I have the memory of that, because I don't want to be that guy today. I really don't. I don't want to be this guy that's walking around with a chip on his shoulder. And I know sometimes some of these episodes, it seems like I do have a big chip on my shoulder, and maybe I do. But nowadays, when I have a chip on my shoulder, there's a reason for it. There's things that are happening in the world that are awful. But I think the difference between today and the Daniel that was drinking is today I actually want to do something about those things. I want to show up, and I want to be a voice speaking out against it in as loving a way as possible. Now, sometimes me being loving is me being kind of an asshole to some people, because some people, that's what they need. That's the language they need to hear, is me calling them out on their bullshit. Maybe they're going to listen, maybe they won't. But I always try to end with love. And that is not the guy that I was when I was drinking. I was the guy when I was drinking. If you had a bumper sticker that I didn't agree with and you were in a parking lot, I would just start screaming at you and being like, fuck you, and all this other stuff. I'm not that person today, and I'm grateful for that, because I wasn't doing any of the causes that I believed in any favors. I was just this crazy person yelling at somebody, and I don't want to be that guy today. Number 40, by fully embracing that there's so little I can control in life, it really frees up my time to be effective for what I can control. What do I mean by that? Okay. I mentioned online arguing. I still banter with people online. I do it almost more like to keep my brain sharp. And like I said, sometimes when I'm arguing with people online, I try to be more respectful nowadays. I don't want to just be insulting to people. I used to be very insulting to people, and sometimes I still find myself veering into that again. Old habits die hard, but the intention now is there to be more loving, even to people that have views that I think are horrible. But I used to spend hours and hours and hours, hours were lost arguing with people online, and there was no focus to it. It was almost like I was one of those guys who was looking for a fight. And nowadays, because I realize that I can't really control other people, I'm not God. I mean, I don't even believe in God, so I'm certainly not God. And so if somebody out there has these views that I find reprehensible, a lot of times I'll find myself typing out stuff to them, and then I look at what I'm typing out and I'm like, you know what? You don't need to post this. And so I don't. And then I just let it go. And I'm grateful that this type of thinking has allowed me to evolve and have moments. Now, again, I don't do it perfectly, but the fact that it actually happens now is progress. And I think so long as we're making progress, they talk about progress, not perfection. I'm never going to be perfect. None of us are. But at least if I'm making a little bit of progress in my day-to-day life, awesome. And so number 41, weirdly enough, getting sober kind of gave me baby steps towards that thing of common enemy. Because when I got sober, I needed to be in a community of people who were also trying to get sober. And so that included people who worship things I didn't worship, voted in ways that I thought were horrible. And yet I needed them. I needed this community of people. I couldn't get sober on my own. So I had to let go a lot of my own prejudices. Number 42, I'm grateful that my sobriety actually was one of the ways that I learned how to coexist with people who did not have the same beliefs that I had, but that we still could work towards a common goal. That's where I first learned how to do that, because when I got sober, I was just desperate for help. And it didn't really matter who was throwing me the life preserver, if it was a Republican, if it was somebody who believed in Jesus. These were all people who I had written off as horrible people I would never have anything to do with. So it turned out I was just as close-minded as they were. But when I was drowning and I needed a helping hand when I was literally drowning in alcohol and I was drinking myself to death. Some of the people who were the biggest help to me were people who did not vote the way I voted. And they certainly believed in religions that I didn't believe in. But yet we had a common foe in alcoholism. They needed me too. They needed to be of service to people. They needed to help people. And it didn't matter that it was a gay, liberal, atheist. They just needed more people in their community who were alcoholic and could relate on that level with them. And so I learned how to work on a common goal of staying sober with people who were not like me. But I ended up feeling love for them and wanting them to stay sober. And we found out that we still had a lot in common, and we certainly cared about one another's sobriety. And like I mentioned, my friend Dudley, who passed away, he was a very staunch conservative guy, but we had some of the most wonderful conversations. And I absolutely loved that guy. And, when he died, the gay group that I go to, that the recovery group, we had a whole meeting dedicated to how much we all loved Dudley. He was a great guy. I mean, he was open-minded towards gay people, which helped. But I mean, we were able to talk about what an amazing person he was, even though we know that he probably voted in ways that we didn't like. But none of that mattered when it came to all of us staying sober. And so I'm grateful that my sobriety gave me that lesson. Just kind of like living down here in the South has given me that lesson too. Which brings me to real life, not just in my sobriety, but in just my day-to-day life with people who don't happen to be alcoholic or anything like that, but they are a member of the human race. The reality is there's common enemies in real life, things like poverty and food scarcity and lack of opportunity and lack of education and false information and people in very big positions of power manipulating media and getting people to believe all sorts of things that aren't true so they will vote against their own best interest. Because at the end of the day, even MAGA people, I'm talking about MAGA people who probably have been getting such shitty information from these vast corporations that are serving billionaires, and they're force feeding them these fear-based news stories about illegal immigrants or transgender athletes or whatever the hell they're telling them about. These are the things you need to be scared about, and we will be scared with you, even though most of those things are never going to affect their life. But poverty is going to affect their life, and losing health care and losing Social Security and not being able to pay their heat bill or their electric bill, or suddenly running out of money, and they used to have enough money, but now they can't even afford to feed their family. And so then they got to make decisions like, I don't know if we can even afford to keep our dog anymore. We're going to have to bring it to the pound. Like people are having to make these friggin' life or death decisions now. And it doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal. I mean, these type of issues affect everybody. And so I'm grateful knowing that I'm not grateful. I mean, I'm grateful knowing that we all have common enemies. I really am, because at the end of the day, that's going to be really important. If we're going to get out of this predicament we're in of being such a divided country, we're going to have to come together at some point. And not everybody's going to be able to do it. I get that. But working together to defeat some common enemies that affect all of us. And I'm not talking about, like the billionaire class. They don't exist in this conversation. Trust me, they're the problem. They're the real enemy. When Sinead O'Connor ripped up a picture of the Pope and she was like, fight the real enemy. Honestly, we should be ripping up pictures of billionaires and saying, fight the real enemy. I mean, we have people in vast positions of power who are pitting us against each other. And while we're distracted with that, they are just taking more and more and more. And we are going to have less and less and less. And man, that is a common enemy that is affecting all of us. I don't care who you voted for. And so, the transgender woman on the can of Bud Light is not going to take away your health care. She is not going to make your grocery prices more expensive. She is not going to take away educational opportunities for your kids or jobs or anything. She's not going to do anything to you. But they want you to think she's going to do a bunch of stuff to you. And so you'll focus on her and you'll just direct all your anger towards her, and you're not going to see the fact that these rich, powerful people, they're the ones actually affecting your life. So we do all have a common enemy in that. And I'm grateful that I can at least realize that. I hope other people join us and realize that too, because it can't be one group of people. For the things to happen in the world that I would like to see happen, I'm going to have to coexist and work alongside all sorts of people. We all will have to. So we all have a common enemy when we fight for equality and dignity, and to actually have a nice quality of life for everybody, not just for a chosen few. And so number 43, I'm grateful that I can ask myself this question today. Is my heart open to everybody? Is it? I don't know. But I'm grateful that I'm asking myself that question. And I ask it a lot because when I started this podcast, I was worried. I've actually been going back and listening to old episodes and making sure that when it comes to, people who believe things I don't believe, I want to make sure my heart is still open to them. Now, when it comes to people who are just being racist and sexist and homophobic and transphobic, yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a douchebag because they deserve it. But can my heart still be open to those people? I don't know. That's a big question. Anyways. Number 44. That brings me, this is a weird thing. I'm going to read something that this woman said. Okay? This is from a woman. I'm going to read this. This is number 44. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. I've been trying to tell all you men that our kitchen pantry is empty with spider webs. Our house has been ransacked, the windows and doors are broken and busted, and the greedy rich bastards have twisted your minds into a sick state that you all continue in the two-party, toxic political system that acts like college football playoffs, yet is burying you and your children and their children and their children's children in a pine box in a shallow grave. Get off your ass and fix your own damn food and clean up the kitchen when you're done. Poverty, healthcare, subsidies, and releasing the Epstein files. Standing up for American women who were raped at 14, trafficked, and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States. Now, I read all that, and if I didn't know who said it, I'd be like, right on, sister, I agree with all that too. Because I do. Well, that person was Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I have been very critical of, and I'm still critical of it. I mean, she has horrible views on a lot of things, but this is what I'm talking about. When somebody says something I agree with, can I at least give them the time of day and be like, okay, well, you know what? Your views on gay people are horrible. Your views on transgender people are horrible. Your views on reproductive rights and a whole host of things, I don't agree with them. But can I still look at the person and not turn them into a caricature? It's very hard to do. But I guess that's the other thing I'm grateful for. Like, I'm not grateful for Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I'm grateful for the fact that she's having a moment right now, and it's forcing me to look at how I respond to people like that. Because my hope for somebody like her is that she continues to evolve. That's my hope for everybody, that we evolve. How awesome would it be if somebody like her suddenly became pro-gay marriage and pro-transgender and embraced all these values of equality and compassion and kindness and dignity and grace? I know that she has that for certain people, but she's still demonizing other people, which is a problem. But, my hope for everybody is that they get to a place where they feel that compassion for everybody. And so, Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you're listening to this, that's my hope for you, because I think it would be a happier life. But I'm grateful that I have that wish for people, and I'm not saying that to sound like a good person. I'm just saying it does make me grateful, because it's better than just hating somebody. Oh, I'm just going to hate that person. I'm going to hate them and hate them and hate them. Donald Trump, I fucking hate him. And there's a lot of people that I fucking hate. So when I say all this stuff, I'm not a perfect person. I do it abysmally. There's so many fucking people in this world that I fucking hate. But I'm working on it. I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I like Donald Trump or people like that. But, I found myself appreciating some of the things she was saying. And so I just wanted to be like, okay, I'm grateful that I can give somebody a little bit of space in my heart to be like, okay, good for you for saying that. Good for you for demanding that the Epstein files get released and all that other stuff. Like, I did agree with her on that. So, I'm grateful that I can get over myself enough nowadays to be that person. That's all I needed to say about that. Number 45, I'm grateful for this expression. Be the love you want to see in the world. Be the light you want to see in the world. Be the community you want to see in the world. Be the acceptance you want to see in the world. Be the olive branch you want to see in the world. Be the dove of peace you want to see in the world. I love that expression because it's a limitless expression. I can put any word in. Unfortunately, it can also be the asshole you want to see in the world. Be the douchebag you want to see in the world. Be the hate you want to see in the world. Be the anger you want to see in the world. So it can work both ways. But I'm focusing on the positive thing. Be the love you want to see in the world, the light you want to see in the world. What's even better is when we can communalize it and be the love we want to see in the world. Be the light we want to see in the world. Be the justice we want to see in the world. Be the community we want to see in the world. It all starts with each of us, but then it all starts with us together as well. We can't do it all alone. So we need each other to be loving together and accepting together and to work together. Number 43, I'm grateful for nature. I'm just grateful for the fact that we can go outside and look up at the sky and we can see clouds, we can see the sun. I think a lot of times when we are just staring at our phones and we're staring at our computer screens and we get into this thing where we think that's all that's happening. Man, I urge you all to spend some time outside. Whether you're living in a city or the country, it doesn't matter. Go outside and look up at the sky. Find an open area. Open areas exist all around. Go out, look up at the sky, take it in. Take in the fact that you're just this tiny little speck and there's this huge, vast sky up above you. There's treetops, there's flowers, there's grass. I know for me, if I'm having a bad day, if I just go outside and I take a walk around the block and I just breathe and I let the sun hit my face or I let the rain fall on me, it does something. It changes me. It changes my perspective. It kind of resets. It's kind of like unplugging the computer and plugging it back in. It recharges my batteries. I think it does that for all of us. So I just urge you to get outside if you can and get some fresh air at least once a day, hopefully more. It really does help. Number 47. I like thinking about the fact that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. Man, we think that we are this big deal, the humanity, but the reality is we're just this blip. We're just this blip in the cosmic timeline. 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth was formed. 14 billion or so years ago, the Big Bang happened, and then all these particles flew through space. And then about 4.6 billion years ago, some of them clumped together and started rotating around the sun. And over time, it formed this orb. And then asteroids were hitting it, and some of the asteroids had ice, and the ice melted and became water and formed oceans. And this happened over billions of years. Number 48, biodiversity. We get to live on a planet with, they think, 8.7 million different species, but they only know about 1.2 million of those species. Most of the species that live on the planet, we still don't know what they are. There's insects we don't know about. There's different types of fish. There's a lot in biodiversity that we still haven't discovered. And sadly, because mankind has been mowing down rainforests and stuff, some of them we will never know about. They will exist without us ever knowing they were here. But I like knowing that I live in a world with so many other species, and they have their reality. A giraffe has its reality. An elephant has its reality. We have our reality, this human reality, which is so complicated compared to what animals have. We are an overly complicated species, but I like the mental reset that being around animals gives me and being around nature. So I'm grateful for that. Number 49. When I think about biodiversity, I also have to think about all the biodiversity that had to happen in order for our biodiversity today to be happening. And I'm talking about the whole history of the world and how much evolution has had to happen. Like, it's just crazy when you stop to think about it. We think that our lives are just so important, but really, our moment here is just a blip. I'm just going to read you some things. So, as I said, 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth was formed. 3.48 billion years ago, the first single cell organisms show up. 1.6 billion years ago, multi-cell organisms started showing up in the form of, they think, seaweed. But look, it took literally billions of years for that to happen. First, it was just these microscopic single-cell organisms, and then billions of years later, multi-cell organisms in the form of, I guess, like seaweed, they're saying. And then, about 800 million years ago, sponges, these sponge-type creatures. And let's see, 530 million years ago, the first true vertebrates showed up, animals that had like a backbone, and it was very simple. Again, it was like lampreys and hagfish. 515 million years ago, the first plants show up, and it was pretty much just moss. Moss showed up. There was really no root systems or anything like that. But that was 515 million years ago. And then around 500 million years ago, these centipedes show up. And then 385 million years ago, they see the first fossilized tree. So, roots had started happening, plants started evolving, and billions of animal species and plant species evolved and then died out for new species to show up. There was many mass extinctions in the process. They're saying about 8 major mass extinctions over the course of Earth's timeline, I guess. 260 million years ago, the first signs of early mammal life. 245 million years ago is the first dinosaurs show up, and they had a long reign, about 167 million years. And then the asteroid came and wiped them out 66 million years ago. And then it wasn't until about 2 million years ago that the first Homo genius, is that how you say that? Our ancestors that we evolved from. And there's been about 21 different species that they know of Homo genius to get to the point where Homo sapiens evolved. There was like the Neanderthals and primates that we evolved from. But then man, as we know it now, didn't show up until about between 200 and 300,000 years ago. So really just a drop in the bucket. And we all originated in Africa. That is true. So it's funny when a racist says, go back to Africa. It's like, we all came from Africa, dude. So I don't know what you're talking about. And for a long time, we were just another animal running around trying to survive, getting eaten by larger animals. We were meals for larger animals. Over time, we evolved, and one of the ways we evolved was we learned how to use tools. We learned how to throw rocks. We have these hands that can grab things, and our brains evolved, and it's like, hey, if I work with this other guy, we can all band together and kill this large animal and eat it. And so we started banding together. But that took a long time. It took tens of thousands of years for us to figure all that out. And the first real civilizations, like the first actual civilization where there was a government and roads and things, that was about 10,000 years ago, Mesopotamia. And even then, it took them a while to get it all together. But yeah, civilization as we know it is a new concept. Once we started farming, that changed everything, because then we had to stay in one place and farm when we learned that we could do that. And so you had Mesopotamia, and then you had Egypt and China. China was evolving then, and now here we are. Our part on the timeline is very small. Again, a couple 100,000 years. Dinosaurs, 167 million years. I don't know if we're going to last that long. Do you think we're going to last that long? If we keep going the way we are, I think the Earth is still going to be here, but I don't think it will be inhabitable for us. I think we're going to make it uninhabitable for humans if we keep going the way we're going. That's just what I think. But anyways, when I think of biodiversity, I like to think of that. I like to think of all the species that had to come before to get us to this point that we're at right now. It's pretty cool to think about. And Number 50, I like to think of the vastness of space. So for all of you who've been here for this whole big, long thing, I did not mean to go on this long, but I have a tendency to ramble, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But if you're still here and you're still in this list with me, the good news is I'm going to press fast forward, because the next things that I'm grateful for, it's a whole list of things that are just cool facts about the universe. And I'm going to list them all right now. Okay, so number 50. I am grateful for the vastness of space. Just thinking about how small we are in the big grand scheme of things, and that we're just this tiny little grain of sand in this infinite space. Number 51. I'm not going to pronounce it right. Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri. That is the closest star to us, and it takes its light 4.25 light years to get to us. And so when you look up at the sky, the newest light you see, besides the sun, is over 4 years old. It's taken 4.25 light years to get to us, or 25 trillion miles. 25 trillion miles. The closest star. That's just the closest star. Number 52, Arendelle, is the furthest star away in our observable universe. It literally is 28 billion light years away. The weird thing about it, though, is because the universe is expanding, it only takes its light 12.9 billion years to get to us. So I don't know how that works. That is like way beyond my comprehension, but that is the facts about Arendelle. Number 53, there's 100 billion to 400 billion stars just in the Milky Way. Number 54, there's 2 trillion galaxies in our observable universe. Number 55, 1.3 million Earths could fit in our sun. Number 56, UY Scuti, I think that's how you say it. That is the largest sun that we know of. It's a red supergiant. Its radius is 17,000 times the sun. If it was in our solar system, it would go all the way past Jupiter, which means we'd all be vaporized. That's how big it is. You could fit 5 billion suns in it, 7 trillion Jupiters, or 7 quadrillion Earths. The reason why I like to list off all those universal facts and all the stuff I mentioned about the world history and how long the Earth has been around and all the different species and how vast the universe is and how long it takes starlight to get to us. Like, the reason why I list all this stuff isn't because I'm trying to be Bill Nye the Science Guy. That's not why I'm doing this. The reason why I'm listing all this stuff off is because number 57, I am so grateful to know how small I actually am. I love thinking about my smallness. It is such a gift to realize that my life really isn't that important. I'm one person out of 8 billion people, and we're all on this tiny little planet. And you could fit 7 quadrillion of these planets into the largest star that we know of. And there's probably even stars that are larger. That's the thing. We don't know. There's so much of the universe that we can't see, and we don't know what's beyond what we can't see. You know, we're just this little pinprick. And so that means number 58, it means our problems, the things we obsess about, the things that we think are life or death, the things that we think are just so important, they're even smaller. Like, if we're small, then our problems are even smaller. They're really nothing. They're going to be here today, gone tomorrow. Like, there will come a time where it's like none of us were ever here. That's how small we are. You know, we don't remember who all the individual dinosaurs. We knew that there were dinosaurs, but we don't know what all their names were. Well, there was Ted the dinosaur and Bob the dinosaur. There was just a bunch of dinosaurs at one point. There will come a time where humanity will be this thing that happened. If there's another mass extinction, say if human beings manage to die off by our own stupidity, which is not hard to imagine. Let's just be honest. It's not hard to imagine. So say that happens and human beings die out. Well, what would probably happen is all the things that we have would degrade over time, but then something else would rise up over time, probably insects. They say that the next thing would be the age of the insects. And so when humanity dies out, insects would like suddenly have a bunch of stuff to eat, and Probably cockroaches. And so at some point down the road, there'd probably be like these huge cockroaches that were like 4 feet long or whatever. I don't know. But unless those cockroaches developed a brain that could comprehend what human beings were, then even the knowledge of what humanity was would die with us. So really, our lives are just so small, and like our problems are even smaller, and yet we're here, which brings me to number 59. We all die. We all die. There's a reason why that is part of the title of this podcast. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. That's become such a spiritual thing for me. That's not me being like punk rock, like we're all going to die. No, that's a very spiritual expression for me now. Embracing the fact that this is very temporary and that all I have is right here, right now. It's forced me to value every moment. Because as small as we all are, number 60, I'm at the end of the list, you guys, number 60, we have the magic of right now. We have the magic of this moment. And all the stuff that I just said, the fact that we had this Earth that took forever to evolve, and we have starlight that takes forever to get to us and was formed, some starlight that was formed before the Earth was even formed, and we're finally just seeing it if we have like some crazy telescope. All of that is amazing. But what's even more amazing is that every single moment we do get to have is a completely unique moment that's never happened before. Every moment is completely unique, and there will never be a moment quite like the moment we're in right now. That's just the facts. This moment right now, it will never be exactly like this. And then years down the road, I might remember talking to you guys tonight and being like, oh, I remember when I was doing that podcast, but I won't remember all of it. I won't remember everything that was in the room. But every single moment is just this snapshot of what existence looks like at that given moment. And yet we take it for granted, and we take it for granted, and we take it for granted. And we're so wrapped up in how we hate this person. We hate that person. We hate that this group's trying to do this and that group's trying to do that. And I don't have enough, and he has more, and I want what he has, and I'm jealous of this person, I'm jealous of that person, I'm pissed off that I didn't get this promotion, or blah, 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 blah. We're so consumed by it. I am. I mean, I try not to be, but I find myself falling into that every day. I think it's the human condition. But isn't it nice that we can remind ourselves to try and not fall into that, and to try and just have moments where we can just appreciate this moment right here, right now. And hey, listen, that doesn't mean that we just accept everything and we roll over and play dead and we're like, oh, well, this moment, I'm just going to accept everything, even all the injustice. No, that's not what I'm saying. Because I wrote it right here on the piece of paper. How are we going to use our fleeting time here? Does it even matter? Do we even matter? I mean, maybe we don't matter. Maybe none of this matters. And there's the reality of that too. But you know what? It matters right now to somebody suffering. What we do with our time right now, it does matter to somebody who needs our help. What we do with our time right now does matter to, I don't know, a shelter dog that is waiting for somebody to come and adopt it. What we're doing right now with our time here does matter to somebody who's waiting for their next meal and needs somebody to speak up on their behalf, or is getting bullied in school, or is being disowned by their family. What we're doing right now matters to those people. So, that's what we can do with our time right now. We can work together, whether we believe in Jesus, or whether we believe in Buddha, or we're Jewish, or we're Hindu, or like me, I'm an atheist. Can we work together to help those people? And can we work together to, find joy, common joy together? Can we experience joy together? And yeah, maybe none of it matters. Maybe like we're all going to die off, and then it will be like we were never here. And maybe we were just this fleeting thing, like this ember from a fire, and then it just like dissipates into the air. Maybe that's all humanity is. If that's the case, great. We won't know because we'll be dead. But we're here right now. We're here right now. and I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful you're here. I would invite you again to call up, leave a voice message for me, danielcartier.com/podcast. And you can press on the, leave a voice message. I would love to hear what you thought of this list. I'm sure, hopefully some of you have some thoughts about it. Maybe you hated my list. Maybe you loved it. I don't know. I wanted to read one more thing, and then I'm going to let you guys go. So I'm just going to end by reading this thing, and then I promise I will be done. This is something that a newspaper wrote about a politician. And so I'm going to read it, and it's going to kind of describe this politician's state of mind. His district was described by the New York Times as a largely white, middle-class section that is hostile to the growing gay community of his city. He saw himself as the defender of home, the family, and religious life. He was against gays and pot smokers and cynics. In a campaign brochure, he wrote, "I am not going to be forced out of this city by splinter groups of radicals, social deviates, and incorrigibles. There are thousands upon thousands of frustrated, angry people, such as yourself, waiting to unleash a fury that can and will eradicate the malignancies which blight our city." The reason why I read that is because that was about Dan White, the person who shot Harvey Milk. And the reason why I'm reading that at the end of this list is because I started off the list with Harvey Milk. I wanted to end by describing the mentality of the person who shot him, because the reality is I could be describing so many politicians today. That could be somebody's brochure today. And isn't it sad that with everything we know about each other and all the coexistence that we should be doing with each other, isn't it sad? Isn't it sad that that mentality still exists? And so we have this moment right here, right now. We can show up and we can try to fight that mentality. It should not still exist, but it does. And so we just have to adopt this attitude, all for one and one for all. If you see somebody suffering, say something. If you see a marginalized group being targeted, stick up for them. Fight with them. That's what we all have to do. So anyways, I'm grateful for you all. This was my gratitude episode. I know it was kind of a weird episode, but I'm not going to apologize for it because it's stuff that I'm grateful for. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, danielcartier.com/podcast. Let me know what you thought of this list. You can also let me know what you're grateful for. What concepts are you grateful for? Maybe you're grateful for Donald Trump or your racist views or whatever. Call up and let me know. I would love to hear from people who don't think the way I do. I'm willing to listen to everybody. And I'm grateful that I have that willingness today. So I invite anybody to call it. danielcartier.com/podcast. And there's a little button you can press and you can leave me a voicemail. And I will listen to it and I will respond to it. And meanwhile, I am wishing you all a bunch of love. And that was the show. All right, you guys, I will see you next week. There is no God and we're all gonna die. There is no God and we're all gonna die. There is no God and we're all gonna die. There is no God, there's just you.